What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sports Card Strategy Show. I'm Paul Hickey with nooffseason.com. And I've got, as always, my main man, Kendall Lefty McKee from Wild Cards Box Breaks, justbaseball.com, and nooffseason.com. Kendall Lefty McKee, how you doing, my man?
Dude, I am a busy bee. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see I got cards freaking everywhere in the background. Just been moving product. We've been doing some breaks. We've been breaking a lot. And so, man, I'm just excited. If you guys are waiting on a break from us, wait patiently. It's coming, but man, I'm excited to get into this episode today. We have a lot of audience participation.
Yeah, we're going to be kind of taking audience questions that have come in recently because they're just such good questions. And we've been rolling with our regular show format, doing an L and a W and a buy and a sell. And so basically, I think we're going to hit all of that. But since we caught Kendall in the middle of packing up and shipping cards from Wild Cards Box Breaks, and we caught me in the middle of updating player rankings at nooffseason.com, we'll quickly just kind of give an overview of what each of us have had going on from a sports card standpoint and news standpoint. So I'll go first. I'm not really sure if these are L's or W's yet, but I've made some purchases. So I got this Jonathan Kuminga rookie ticket auto, on-card auto. It looks like a Gem Mint 10. It came in, I think I paid maybe $60 for it. So it's an Optic Contenders, and it's a Prism. So one of the shiny ones. And it looks like it could be a 10. I'm loving the condition. So that's going to go to PSA. I bought two other basketball cards that I bought with the eBay authenticity guarantee. This is the first time I've sprung for enough money that actually warrants the eBay authenticity guarantee. But Kendall, I felt like this Tyrese Maxey Contenders Optic rookie ticket auto out of 99 was a great price. I got it for like $325.
That's beautiful, man. I love the way it looks too.
It's a great looking card. I'm not sure on the centering, and it's hard to tell. It's going to be hard for you to tell on this video. The centering is the only thing that could make it a 9. Everything else about this card is clearly a gemmy. The corners and the surface and everything just look phenomenal. Another basketball card real quick that I got. Again, I feel like these are W's, but they could be L's. This is just a sick looking Cade Cunningham rookie ticket auto. It's like the Kuminga in that it's the Optic Prism. And so this was the same price as the Maxi, $325. And it looks like for sure a PSA 10. We'll see. You never know, but it looks like a PSA 10 to me. So these are probably all going to go to PSA. And then lastly, and I'll hand it over to you, F1, Enzo Fittipaldi. We all know the name, I think, from his grandfather, Emerson, who is like in the top 30 or 40 of all time in points in F1, but he also raced in IndyCar, I believe, is how many Americans may know the name through IndyCar. But anyway, Enzo Fittipaldi is in F2. I think he finished 8th overall last year. This is his first Topps Chrome F1 auto, and this is a gold out of 50. And it was $103. And I feel like it's a 10. I feel like it's a PSA 10. So it's going to go to PSA. I have no idea if any of these will actually get PSA 10s, but it's going to go with this. They're all going to go with this Lawler that I showed you a couple weeks ago. So I'm pretty pumped about what I've been able to do in cards, you know. I got a lot going on. I won't bore you guys with all the details, but personally, I'm feeling pretty good about some of the plays, and I'm excited to report back on the show, you know, over the next several weeks or months in terms of how these play out. So what do you think, and what do you got going on, Lefty?
I think some of those cards are great looking, man. I mean, I'm big on Tyrese Maxey. He had a hell of a weekend. Holy cow. Embiid ended up sitting, and James Harden was sitting. And so he destroyed several games this weekend, but specifically on Saturday night, coming out with a 30-pointer. Just had I think he had 15 or 18 in the third quarter, and he was the guy. They interviewed him after the game, and he was talking about how he still is the youngest player on that team. Like, there's rookies that have come this is his second year in the league, I think, or I think it's his second.
It's his third.
Okay, well, he's still the youngest player on this team, and I'm just like, man, this guy's got a bright future.
Yeah,
They
he's
drafted.
22.
He fell late in the first round because they were concerned about his jump shooting, and he's clearly worked on that.
Yeah.
The guy's a stud. James Harden, honestly, is not going to be that long in Philly, and this is going to be his team. Him and Shake are just they're going to be the next Philly duo with Embiid, so he's incredible. I wish I honestly had more of his stuff as well. I think that's an awesome buy.
Yeah, I mean, my strategy has just been kind of like looking at guys that I like and then just looking at deals, basically, like sellers on eBay that have cards listed with the best offer, and even some that don't, that just have a buy it now. And then I'll sometime, even if they don't have a best offer, I will get an offer from them, and then we can be in negotiation. So I wasn't out like actively searching for a Tyrese Maxey card. I wasn't out actively searching for a Jonathan Kuminga card, but they are two guys that I like. Kind of like how you walk around a card show and look for baseball guys. I was kind of like walking around the virtual card show of eBay and just in my spare time and just found them and just said, let's get these. So hopefully they pay off.
Yeah. And I think that's worth mentioning too, is not only do you just go and pull the trigger every time you go to eBay, but you kind of have a short list of players that you are investing in and or at least watching. I think that's important. I think liking eBay auction or eBay buy it nows is very important because eventually you'll get an offer if that card is sitting there for a while. And then it turns into then it turns into an offer scenario. That's a sneaky strategy that's really good. So if we haven't talked about that before, then that's just a simple way to passively know which players you're going to go after. What I like to do actually is another little trick is, if I want to sell a card, or if I know I'm going to sell a card in the next couple of weeks or something, and it's not like a $5 or $6 one, I'll go find some of those cards on eBay, and then I'll like those auctions so that I can just know when they do close, because it'll update you. Oh, you lost this auction. And then I can see, what they sold for the most part. Or sometimes you have to check 130 point. If you guys are unfamiliar with that, basically 130 point shows what the actual offer was, instead of just if it was a buy it now that took a best offer and there's just a slash on it through eBay. 130 point will be able to show you what it actually went for, which is super helpful. But yeah, so man, Kuminga as well had a night last night.
Yeah, he put up 20 last night.
Yeah, and I think I've been watching Kuminga. I've been like, where is this guy at? This Warriors team kind of needs another person to stand up, which is crazy to even say. And Kuminga is coming back off of a rough season so far, but I think he's starting to have a run. And I was just watching him last night. I was interested in a sneaky pickup from a fantasy perspective, but as I watched it, I was like, man, this guy has a lot of run potentially.
He's raw too. He's only 20. So he's like, and he's 6'7". He reminds me of a player. This is gonna like date me a little bit, but he reminds me of a player named Jason Richardson who played at Michigan State. And he's like the same size and just athletic. And Jay Rich he like developed a jump shot, but really he was just like a slasher and a finisher. And I feel like Kuminga is like Jay Rich. And he could be like, he has huge upside potential, huge ceiling. Or he could just be like one of those guys who is just an amazing athlete that like never does anything, but he's only 20. So it's really hard. And what I like about him though, is he's in Golden State. So like if any team is going to put him in a position to be an actual superstar in the NBA. I feel like it's that franchise. So sorry to cut you off, but yeah,
No, that's great.
I feel like people are a little bit down on Kuminga, and I feel like I got it. Had this been like, we talk about this all the time, buying the previous year's release when the dust has settled and the hype has settled a little bit and so like putting a strategic stamp on my purchases, getting Kuminga when there's like really no hype around him at all. And like, to your point, he's struggled. He's always been a guy that I like. So if he's struggling, I don't care. That's a perfect time to get his card. Same with Cade. Cade's injured. He's not going to play the rest of the season. I love Cade. I don't think I would ever get that card for that price if Cade was on the court right now. Anyway, back to you, Lefty.
Yeah, so basically Kuminga is worth taking a chance on, I think, because if this, like you said, he's in Golden State. If he was in Orlando or something like that, no offense to Orlando fans out there, but like I wouldn't be as excited. You know, like Bol is out in Orlando he had a great first half of the season, but I'm not going out to find a Bol card because I just don't really believe in the development track that they've been on. You know, like I did some Cole Anthony last year, ended up making decent flips on those, but still, like, I think because of the pedigree of the coaching staff, because of the leaders that are on that team, I mean, all this aside, Iguodala is there as well, and I see Iguodala if he's not playing, he is coaching up that team. And I think about Kuminga coming in and playing kind of an Iguodala role. I mean, obviously they're not the exact same player, but when Iguodala was young, you know, he was a slasher and a dominant, 4 in 3 or 4 in the NBA. And I think like he could learn a lot from that, especially being a team leader. Plus, watching Draymond in that team is pretty cool. But eventually those guys are aging, and so this team will need somebody like Kuminga to stand up. And if Wiseman actually ends up being anything, that's a heck of a 1-2 punch in the next round. Jordan Poole, Wiseman, Kuminga. This team is set up to still be competitive when their superstars age out. So,
Lefty, I got one more thing I need to show you, and I know you're not a huge fan of this move, but I'm kind of the guy on this show that advocates for these moves in specific scenarios. But I forgot about this. I bought this Giannis on-card auto, Beckett authenticated. So this was none of these cards were ever signed by Giannis before they went in packs. So this is a Fleer, like a pre-rookie card, basically, from 2013. But this is a Beckett 10 auto on a Giannis Fleer card from 2013. So it's technically a rookie card. And I'm going to send it into PSA just like this. I'm just going to send it in just so everybody knows, I'm sending it in the slab. And the reason I'm sending, and I've done this several times with other cards. I've done it with Giannis cards. I've done it with Magic Johnson cards, and some other guys. But the reason I'm sending it in the slab is because PSA will see that it's already Beckett authenticated. And then there will be no question really that they need to PSA DNA authenticate it. So I'm going to get, just so everyone knows, there's a crossover grading that allows you to say, I want a card grade on it and an auto grade, or you can just get the card grade and get the auto authentic. And then there's also a little technicality in the PSA grade in the submission system where you can say, and I would encourage all of you to do this. The specific way I'm going to send this in is online. I'm going to put that I'm going to send it in the slab, the Beckett slab like this. And on psacard.com, when I submit it, I'm going to put that I want a card grade and that I want an auto grade, but that I want the minimum auto grade to be authentic. And so that way, if for whatever reason PSA thinks that this is a crappy auto, which I don't think it is, Beckett says it's a 10. If for whatever reason PSA like thinks that it's like a 3 auto or something like that, or I don't know. The worst case scenario is that PSA would put authentic on this and they wouldn't send it back to me in the Beckett slab. They'd put it in a new, because that's the goal. Get this card in a new PSA slab with a card grade and an auto grade or an auto authentic. So that's what I'm going to do. And if any of you have any questions, you can always drop us a line on Twitter. I'm at no off season card. Kendall's at Lefty McKee. You can drop a comment below in the YouTube video, or you can email me at paul@nooffseason.com. But just so everybody knows, I paid about $215 for this card. And I believe it's because it's in a Beckett slab. I think that once this is in a PSA slab, I mean, obviously, if it's a PSA 10, it's going to go up huge. If it's a PSA 8 or less, it's will probably still be worth more than it is in the Beckett slab. And it's a Giannis rookie auto for $215. Lefty can kind of comment on like why it's only $215. And I don't know if everybody likes this play, but this is something I've been on for the last couple of years. It hasn't done me dirty yet, and I think it's not going to do me dirty this time. Chad Gill says, good morning, guys. Good morning, Chad. Lefty, over to you.
Well, not to rain on your parade, but it did do you dirty one time with
True, maybe twice actually.
The Randy Moss coming back.
Jerry Rice.
Oh yeah. Jerry Rice coming back as not authentic when it was previously labeled authentic. Like, well, that was tough.
You're right. You're right. It has done me dirty a couple of times. I've done it sometimes I tend to forget some of the losses that I've had because I've done so many of these submissions. Kendall's right. So basically, I think it's done me dirty a couple of times.
I don't mean to zing you there. I'm just saying like that was like, I couldn't believe that actually happened. Well, because it was labeled authentic, right?
Yeah. And just to clarify, what happened with that is it was in an old blue PSA slab with a blue PSA sticker. And it was a Jerry Rice authentic auto, but it said trading card in the slab. And so what happened was the auto was authentic, but what I did was I sent it in with requesting a card grade, and the card was a replica of the original card.
Oh.
So PSA basically returned it to me in the blue slab saying, we can't put this in a new slab with a new label because the card is a replica card. The auto is an official auto. Like we're saying that Jerry Rice signed this. We're just saying that it's a replica of the original card. So we can't.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? I actually ended up selling it for more than what I bought it for.
Well,
even though that part didn't work out. So
it all works out.
It all worked out. Good morning, Brian Steeler 714.
What's up, Brian?
Lefty, do you want to give us a quick update on what you got going on card wise before we get into all these audience questions?
Sure, man. I did want to talk about the crossover that you're doing. I like this move. It's really not as more. It's not as more. Sorry, that's not coming out right. It's not as. Frick. Okay, so basically, it's money wise, it's not that much of a difference. If you're not doing mass amounts of these, if you're doing a couple of them, what I like to do is I find some Beckett ones that have pre-grades. This is not a strategy that is unheard of. You can go look at on eBay and you can find people that are looking for 9.5 subgrades and then going to submit them. But for instance, I did this with a Erling Haaland card that I had it in a Beckett slab 9.5 and I crossover graded it to a 10.
Yes.
But but they send back your Beckett label with it. So that's kind of neat. I just kept this because I was like, that's kind of cool. I don't know what I'll need this for.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
But the centering was 9.5, edges were 9.5, corners were a 10, and a surface was a 9. And so I was just like, oof, with that 9 being there, it could end up getting a PSA 9. But I thought, a PSA 9 is going to be much more desirable in my collection, at least, than a Beckett 9.5, because honestly, what it comes down to is my Beckett slabs don't fit in my case with all the rest of my.
Yeah, I noticed you got your case out a minute ago.
I know,
what case is that?
I
need a case. That's why I asked. What case should I get?
Apache.
Okay.
I went in there at Harbor Freight. Honestly, it's like $35 or something like that. It's like a Pelican case. It's but it's a lot cheaper. and
Okay.
it's never let me down.
Let's go Apache. I'll have to check it out.
The one thing that I would say is I carried that around the national last year, and after a while I was just like, this thing is getting heavy. Like it's not heavy, but when you carry it for like 10 hours straight, you're just like, okay, I'm tired of carrying this. So if you got a backpack option,
I had a backpack.
I would look at a backpack option.
Yeah, and just to clarify, my backpack was not like a card specific backpack. It was just a regular person backpack.
Just RPO a regular person backpack.
Good to see RPO back on the show. We've got a question from RPO that we're probably going to be answering later that he sent in through Twitter. Happy Monday to you. And Chad Gill says he just sent in an Obsidian Vinny. We talk about Vinny on the show a lot. Auto SGC9. Okay, SGC95 Auto 10 and an Obsidian Haaland. Same thing, hoping for love that. Yeah, I mean, that's another play too, is like we talk about the BGS crossover, but the SGC crossover. Sneaky. I like that, Chad. Good work. Let us know how those come back.
Yeah, man, an Obsidian in a tuxedo. I bet that looks super good on its own, Chad. So no matter what, you probably checked the option where if it doesn't come back and the grade you wanted, they'll send it back to you. So even if they send it back to you, an Obsidian Haaland in the SGC, that would probably sell well anyway. So anyway, that'd be pretty sick. But I also wanted to show, I don't think I've shown this yet, but I also got my Trevor Lawrence auto in my eBay authenticated.
Yeah.
So I literally have had this like this, the stand comes with a display, and I just put it on my shelf because I'm excited about Trevor Lawrence's future. But man, I do want to talk about this for a second. The AFC, the quarterbacks in the AFC are going to be electric for the next 10 years, probably. I mean, the NFC, okay, cool. Jalen Hurts, he'll just take over. It's all good. Okay, Dak Prescott, what a chump. Just the worst game I've ever seen him play yesterday. Not really, but he just did not come through in clutch time. And man, but the AFC though. Okay, Brock Purdy, NFC. He's probably not going to be there next year, and who cares? That's just Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. I don't care about all that drama. Come to the other side, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty. Oh my gosh, what a guy! I mean, Trevor Lawrence. You've got Josh Allen.
And you haven't even mentioned Patrick Mahomes yet.
That's what I was going to say. My last one was going to be a one-footed Patrick Mahomes.
I love the one-footed. That got me so
Holy
hyped.
Cow.
He wasn't even grimacing in pain. He was just out there.
And and even beyond that, those four guys, I would take an NFL subscription to just watch those four teams for the next 5 years. Like if you're just like, hey, you can only watch these four teams. I'm a Browns fan, and I would still subscribe to that. Which honestly, you got Deshaun Watson out there. Like I know that's a lot of controversy, but he's a great quarterback. That's Lamar Jackson could re-sign. No offense to your Kenny Pickett, but I do not think that he is going to be in the echelon of those quarterbacks. But just, oh my gosh, man, the AFC has some incredible matchups over the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing too about the AFC. So I've talked on this show about Patrick Mahomes and how I stuck with him throughout all of the last 18 months when everybody kind of jumped off the bandwagon early in 2021 due to his play and everything. But who I really want to talk about, and I want to make the point about timing, is Joe Burrow. So all of last year, I was not on the Joe Burrow train, not because I didn't believe in Joe Burrow or what he was doing during his amazing run last year, but I just didn't want people to buy in at those price points. Then what we saw, which was what I expected, was at the beginning of this NFL season when he struggled a little bit, his prices came down and there was an opportunity to buy him. And now now you look at Joe Burrow's prices, and even though he's having another amazing run, they're not quite where they were at the height of his Super Bowl run last year, which to me is a great sign. So there's 2 points I want to make on Joe Burrow. Number one, he's legit. Yeah. I believe that Joe Burrow, more so than last year, is legit long-term into the future. So he will be moving up the Sports Card Investment Report rankings at nooffseason.com, and he will be a fixture at the top like Patrick Mahomes, regardless of how the Bengals finish out this season, because he's proven to me through his play on the field and through his swag just in general that his market is not going to go away. And so I'm not sure when the best times are going to be to buy into Joe Burrow cards, but when there are dips, you should buy into Joe Burrow. Those are my 2 points. That's all I wanted to say. The dude's legit. I do believe that, like, even though he may not win a Super Bowl, he will have hype spikes based on how he is playing and how he's playing in playoff games and even what he does in the regular season and stuff. I just think he's a different guy, and he's legit on the field as much as he kind of carries himself with his persona on and off the field. So whereas last year I was kind of like watching and observing, this year I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, I'm into Joe Burrow. And Kendall, you talk a lot about something I love, which goes overlooked. You talk a lot about like making moves in cards to eventually get a card. And that's kind of what you did with the Trevor Lawrence. Like, you made a bunch of moves to be able to put yourself in a position to get the Trevor Lawrence that you just held up. I think Joe Burrow could be a guy for me like that, where some of his cards are still achievable, and maybe I make some of these moves and take the profit from some of these moves to get a nice Joe Burrow, and then like hold that for a little while and just see what happens. And a year ago, I never would have said that. But just what I'm observing again from him, I just think he could be that guy for me.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think we should get into some of these audience questions. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody real quick that you can go premium free for a year at nooffseason.com. That's huge. People have been emailing me a lot about that, and I'm replying to everybody with the details on that. So in order to do that, email me at paul@nooffseason.com. I want to get you a free year premium of the Sports Card Investment Report at nooffseason.com. Also, Kendall, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do this, but I'm going to figure something out. People can now go to premium.sportscardstrategy.com and they can get exclusive Sports Card Strategy Show content for premium subscribers. And they can do that, and it's $9.99 a month. So for $10 a month, Kendall and I, or sometimes maybe just I, will be providing premium members only content in the podcast form via Spotify. To get this, go to premium.sportscardstrategy.com, and for $9.99 a month, so $10 a month, you can be a premium subscriber to the Sports Card Strategy Show. And of course, if you don't want to do any of that, that's totally fine with us. We're happy that you're here with us, watching and listening to the show. And I want to kick it off. So we've had some great questions come in from some subscribers and some listeners. And let's see. Okay. One of them, Kendall, this is going to be up your alley. And I know Brian Steeler 714 called us his Bowman brothers a minute ago. So he says, on January 2nd, podcast 63, you said that you only buy Bowman Chrome First PSA 10 and Bowman Chrome First Auto for baseball. I understand the premise of this. Everyone looks for the Bowman Chrome First and Autos, therefore prices reflect that. I wondered how some other cards compare on buy versus sell price and ROI percentage. Do you know how the ROI for purchasing a higher priced Bowman Chrome First Auto compares to that of a same rookie year in a Bowman Sterling Auto or Best Auto? He gives an example. He says, for example, right now on eBay, there is a 2019 Brett Beatty, who's in our report, thanks to Kendall, Bowman Chrome Draft First Auto for $198. a 2019 Brett Beatty Bowman's Best auto for $50. And then basically what Scott's talking about here is he's saying, so in order to earn a 50% profit, the Chrome draft has to sell for $297 and the Bowman's Best has to sell for $75. So basically, I like this question, Kendall, because this is kind of the same when I first started buying sports cards. This is the kind of thing I would think about. I would get tempted by the lower priced card thinking, oh, well, that one only has to sell for this price so that I can get this money versus this other one has to sell for that much more. I know what my answer is to this, but why don't you kind of tell us what you think about this question?
Well, I want to previously I just would have said like, yeah, it's just not worth thinking about. And I just would have left it at that because Bowman Sterling, although usually, honestly, the Bowman Sterling cards look beautiful. And and same with Bowman's Best, like there, and it says that Bowman name. So you're just like, okay, sick. I'm going to get in at this lower price point. But I want to think about it from like a profit loss and a percentage scenario. So Bowman Chrome, I would say like the BCA Bowman Chrome Auto, it's going to hold the value the longest in a situation that Brett doesn't come in and destroy. And then additionally, it's going to have the highest X factor if he comes in and does well. So the upside X is incredible for a Bowman Chrome Auto, especially on a guy like him or a guy like Jordan Lawler or any of those guys that are in the top echelon of prospect autos right now. What I would say about a Bowman Sterling or something like that, although the X factor is there, I like the thought where he's saying, okay, this only has to go up $50 for me to get a 2X or potentially ish a 2X. Otherwise, this other one has to go up 200 for me to get a 2X. And I'm trying to look at building my bankroll, which we've talked about quite a bit. But what I will say as well is these other cards that although are more obtainable on the bottom side, they have less upside in terms, so it doesn't have that X factor as well. So like if Brett Beatty comes in and destroys, it probably will 2-3X, but it's probably going to stay around that 2-3X and maybe not even get to that point because that's not the card that people are looking for. Because what you're gonna end up selling to is you're gonna end up selling to a collector who just loves the Mets and probably doesn't have a whole lot of bankroll because they're not flipping cards. They're just taking their average play money and putting it towards that. Or you're going to be selling to a new investor who doesn't really know that that's the Brett Beatty that he should be buying. So, like your X factor on the top is going to be great. But now let me also bring back the scenario. If Brett doesn't come out and destroys, if he struggles, that Bowman Chrome Auto will come down, but not as much as that Bowman Sterling. And we're talking about liquidity and we're talking about movability, which is like, the same thing essentially. Yeah. But then you're also talking about like a dollar cost average on your investments. So if it comes down on the Bowman Chrome Auto, that may come down to like $70 if he's struggling out of the gate, which is, I mean, that's a big threshold. But if he's struggling at the gate, you're not going to be able to sell that Bowman Sterling. Exactly. It's going to be unsellable. Like so then you're out $50. Like you're just out and you have a card, that you're going to be reminded of how bad he's doing all the time. So what I'm saying is like, although you can make a sneaky 2x investment there, I would say the risk versus reward here is not worth the money that you're going to put in. You might as well just save it or put it into another player that has a Bowman Chrome Auto around that same price. And there are plenty of those guys as well. And if you want to message me over that, there's plenty of guys that don't necessarily make our top one or our Bowman list because there's just so many high price guys that are in our list. But if you're looking for $5-10 guys that I'm like, hey, these are guys that I'd be willing to take a shot on for $50, that their Bowman Chrome Auto could go from 50 to 150 pretty easily. And we do have those kind of guys too.
Yeah. And you pretty much nailed this. You 100% nailed this, but I want to say something in my own words related to this. So, you take the player out of this, okay? And this was what I learned. This is probably the biggest thing I've learned in sports card investing. Take the player out of this. If Brett Beatty, and you already said this, but if Brett Beatty doesn't do anything, that Bowman Chrome, that the play for that is to buy that Bowman Chrome first auto and sell it immediately upon some kind of call up or some kind of hype. And you can do that. The thing I like about that is you can do that with any player. You can literally do that with any player. When you go to the Sterling or the Best or something else, that player not only has to get called up, but that player has to annihilate the ball consistently and then has to do something spectacular in a big game to drive his pricing for that 50% margin. Like the likelihood of Brett Beatty being able to do something to drive those other non-Bowman Chrome first autos to even get to a 50% profit margin is extremely, extremely low. It's like catching lightning in a bottle versus just, that's what I love about the Bowman Chrome first auto. It just will go up when the player gets called up, and then that's when you sell it. And how much it goes up will depend on how good the player is. So Chad Gill's dropping some great questions and comments related to this in the chat. So I encourage you guys to check out what Chad's saying. That's additional value to the audience. But in the sake of time here, let's go to the next question. So Kendall, I know you had some questions come in, so I'll tee you up for one of them. It's about Michael Jordan. So I'll let you elaborate on this, but somebody texted you about being a huge Jordan collector. He also likes the contemporary NBA and collects some stuff there. He's been waiting to move a good chunk of his Jordan inventory. He's saying, would the week right after the Super Bowl and ending the night of the NBA All-Star Game be a good time to put a lot of stuff up for auction on eBay? He assumes it's a mini hype cycle, but doesn't want to be too presumptuous. Trying to liquidate things. I don't like Jordan at all anymore, he says. I've already moved some of his more valuable stuff. Most of what I have is mid-level stuff. What do you think about that?
So this is coming from my guy, Ryan. It's another guy that listens to our show that reached out to me and asked me some questions from time to time. Very thankful for you, Ryan. Continue. Yeah, feel like anybody who's listening to this show, feel free, like you guys can reach out to me. Usually my first interaction with people is they're just like, hey man, if you have a minute of your time, I know you're busy. And I'm like, bruh, most of the time I'm just searching eBay. Like, yes, I do get up at 8 a.m., and do this show on Monday mornings because I'm a busy guy. But like, honestly, like I have time for you. Please reach out to me. I would love to be able to help. So Ryan, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for messaging me and building a friendship. But yeah, he's talking about this huge Jordan lot that he has. And I want to preface by saying I think that Ryan's lot specifically doesn't matter for a hype cycle. I think that people are always looking for Jordan cards. Always. I mean, there's collectors and investors out there that don't matter. They don't even have any other cards. Like, they're just like, I don't do anything but collect Jordan cards. Like there are those kind of people out there. Like, like there are people out there who don't give a crap about this Yori Telemann auto, that I pulled out of a Merlin pack the other day. Like no one knows who that is. You say Michael Jordan legit anywhere, and people are like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That dude is. They might not know that he owns the Hornets, but they definitely know he was a good basketball player. Or if they don't even know that, they know he's an athlete and they know he has 6 shoes. So like you just have a breadth of investor or buyers there that you can move. So I think this is a little unique because it's Jordan. So what I responded to him was I said, yes, there is probably a good timing right after the All-Star game, especially because Jordan will probably be at the All-Star game. Like, I think that any time that people can show Michael Jordan or like any of those veteran players that are like on the sidelines during the dunk contest or anything like that, like Shaq always gets the spotlight at the All-Star game. I'm not even sure how, but he's a big dude. So but anyway, I'm saying that there probably is a hype cycle here. Now, I am speaking a little bit from ignorance that basketball and the NBA is like kind of your thing. But I do know the NBA really well. I just don't have a whole lot of NBA basketball cards. But I would think that you could sell Jordan anytime. Otherwise, if you could sell him here, I think you should go for it and try to liquidate it. Especially, I would move it towards a sport that's kind of starting in the next couple of months. But if you want to hold, I would also either hold for the playoffs when basketball cards are always up. It doesn't matter who it is basically in the playoffs because people get so excited because the matchups are legit. Or, I mean, you already held for like 30 plus years. You might as well hold for when the Hornets are good. I think that's a longer term hold, and obviously they're not going to be good for the foreseeable future. But the Hornets are bound to be something in the future, and they're bound to at least be in the media somewhere, and that is Michael Jordan's team. So I don't know. I think I'm going to defer from here on forward. Like, the rest of today is I want you to answer this question because I think Ryan deserves to have the answer from an actual basketball guy. Because
thanks, Kendall.
But no, I think that's what I would think.
It's a great question, Ryan, and thanks for being an audience member here on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We love it. I agree with Kendall. There's really Jordan sort of transcends the hype cycle situation that we talk about. He's maybe one of like 2 or 3 guys that even do that. He might be the only guy that does that. But so I think, just to add to what Kendall said, I do think that, Ryan, the point in time that you pointed out, the NBA All-Star break is a great time to list Jordan cards. I also think, like Kendall said, May and June is also a huge time to list Jordan cards if you're looking to maximize. If you want the cash at any other point during the year, list the Jordan cards and you should do fine. I'll mix together one last point on Michael Jordan, and then I'll mix together this with another related question from another audience member who asked us a similar question, but about some different players. Kendall mentioned Shaq and whatnot. So I do think I'm weird with some of these like gut feelings that I have. I like a lot of times I talk about data. That's probably 99% of what I talk about. But then 1% of the time I have these gut feelings, this intuition that sort of comes from my background in sports. And I don't know how often I've been right on these things, but and I may offend some people here, but Michael Jordan, if you look at his overall, like the controversy around him in terms of his gambling, and just sort of the type of human being that he is, I don't know. And then we look at like, I'm sorry to do this, but like we look at like other people in like other rich men have gotten in trouble for a lot of stuff that they did earlier in their lives, right? I just don't know that Jordan is exempt from that. Like, I don't know. I don't know that something won't drop, that the hammer won't drop on something Jordan was involved with coming out in some way. Like, I think the dude's been protected from a lot of his indiscretions that he may or may not have had in his life. And I just don't think he's immune from that. And I think, like, if I were you, if I were holding a large collection of Michael Jordan cards, I would liquidate them. And like Kendall said, I would put them into something else. I'm not making any accusations on Michael Jordan. I'm looking around at the landscape of the world and I'm saying, that dude fell from grace. 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 What's to say Michael Jordan? I mean, Tiger Woods. Let's just say Tiger Woods. What's to say Michael? We know Michael Jordan was hanging out with Tiger Woods at those times. What's to say that like Michael Jordan doesn't fall from grace? He could.
Absolutely.
He might. I might get rid of my Michael Jordan. Now, the other point I wanted to make is, from another question in the audience, Scott, who asked he asked a bunch of questions in an email. So Scott Fuquay says, early on, I bought some cards such as Shaq, Magic, Yao Ming, Jordan, Dwayne Wade, not rookie cards, and most are under $100. What is the play for selling cards like this other than looking for a sucker like me with a smiley face? It's to just list them I said I'd list around this upcoming All-Star break. And you're just not going to get much for those cards. You're going to want to get whatever cash back you can during the All-Star break for guys like that, or during the playoffs, like Kendall said. But I wouldn't wait too much longer. I'd get out of them and I'd reinvest whatever I can. And I'd just chalk it up to, hey, this was learning. This was entertainment. I'm going to reinvest this into something better. So I think another good one here, Kendall, that I wanted to make sure we had some time for. There's a few more here. One is, this is from Scott Lawrence, who's been a big time supporter. So thank you, Scott. He's bought the book. He's listened to the show. He's upgraded to the premium at no off season. He's used the Market Movers code, marketmoversapp.com. Use the code no off season to get your first month for $1. He says, you and Lefty keep up the good work. I was wondering if this would be a good topic to discuss on the pod for new investors. Strategies for new investors at different price entry points. What would you guys do if you had $500 to invest? What would you guys do if you had $2,500 to invest? What would you guys do if you had $5,000 to invest? Kind of coming up with mini lists for each sport, which player or group. So if we were to boil this down into like 2 or 3 minutes of conversation, I would say
I love these conversations. Like this one specifically, it reminds me of our old like Would You Rather, or like the gauntlet stuff that we did.
Exactly. I love it too. So like, I guess, Kendall, like if you had $500 to invest, what would you put that into?
Well, just to be clear, that's like kind of the level I'm at right now.
Yeah, so, me too, by the way.
You know, I'm at the point now where I'm trying to get rid of my bulk. Like, not just get rid of it for whatever sake, but I'm not interested in holding a bunch of cards. I'm interested in holding a few cards. That way I can focus on their percentage gain. I can really, dial it in, and it's not so like a shotgun spread. So what I would do, honestly, if I had $500, is I would go out and buy maybe 1 or 2 premium top shelf autos, and maybe try to make a sneaky, if I was seeing them in person, I would try to make a sneaky play for a raw auto. Now, if you're buying them online, I think like buying raw and trying to guess the condition from an eBay sale is really tough. I know Paul's talked quite a bit about that, about searching for a PSA 10 on eBay and looking at it. He's as honest as anybody by saying like you can't always tell, because of course people aren't going to put their most honest photos on eBay, because then the price won't sell for the same price. But I would honestly go out and buy a couple of autos that are around 200, 250, and I would buy some of like the big names. Like, I wouldn't try to overthink it. Go out and buy Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow or somebody like that, or like a Kobe or something, and be able to flip that when there's hype cycles. Think of guys that are not going to depreciate because they don't play well. So I mean, personally, I just bought a $500 Trevor Lawrence card. I bought it for my year's gain at the end of 2022. All the bankroll that I had made about $700 or $800 profit over the last couple of months, and so I went out and bought a Trevor Lawrence rookie ticket auto because I believe that T-Law is going to be a great quarterback. I just went on an absolute tear on the AFC earlier in this show, and I believe that he's going to be a good dude. A guy I would buy right now is I would still probably purchase Indy Rodriguez. It's not going to be quite the gain that you would have made if you would have bought in last year at this time, but he's still coming in at Baseball America's top 30 prospect. Henry Davis is struggling at the catcher position for the Pirates, and so I would buy there, or I would go out and buy an Ellie De La Cruz because he's going to get a ton of media exposure over the next 12 months.
Great answers. I'm going to go real quick through mine. So I would say for $500, I would put an additional 150 in and get this Anthony Edwards, which actually I did. I bought this card. I just bought this card for $625. This Anthony Edwards Donruss Optic rated rookie purple prism auto. So it's an on-card auto. I just believe in Anthony Edwards, and his raw cards, his raw good. This is cheap for Anthony Edwards. So like if you want a Contenders Optic or something, you're paying $2-3 grand for that. In a high grade.
Golly, he's so good, man.
He's so good. I seriously believe in him.
Do you think this card's cheap because the auto is a little off center?
Maybe. I don't know. I looked at this forever. Thanks, Chad. Chad Gill says sick card. I appreciate that. This is one where, like, you know how you get your buddy offers you a fantasy football trade that catches your eye and you literally think about it for like 2 weeks. Like this card was like that for me. It was like, I don't know if I want to do it. But I love the card, and I just kept coming back to like, it's a lot of money for me, but it's not a lot of money for Anthony Edwards. And I don't know. I mean, I think like this is not a lot of money for an Anthony Edwards on card auto. I think you might be right. It might be that the auto is like a little bit weird. I might send this one into PSA and just get a card grade on it because the auto is authentic anyway. So we'll see. Another one. Okay. So then next price point up would be like $2,500. I would, oh shoot, this one's not going to go for that low because I just see there's 13 hours left still. But I would look for something like this Ja Morant Contenders Optic rookie ticket auto. This one happens to be a 10-10. And that's going to probably go for like $5 grand. So that might be in the ballpark for me at $5 grand. But at 2,500, I would look for something similar to that. And Kendall went baseball. I'm going basketball. So this card right here. And then at the, what was the other levels? Was there a 7,500 or a $10,000?
You can make it up. It's your show.
At a $7,000 level, Scott Lawrence, I would buy this card. Like, this is Giannis. This is kind of a grail card for me. This is the Giannis 2013 Prism rookie auto. It's a sticker auto, but like this is like the Giannis rookie auto, and this is in PSA 10. So make an offer. This might be $5 grand. I don't know. They want $7 grand for it, so I put this in at my $5 grand level, I think. All right. So just to keep it moving here to try to get everybody in, and we've got some great questions actually live that I want to try to get to. So we'll try to get to you that are asking questions live. Kendall, this is another interesting one. So this is from Travis Martin, who's a subscriber. He did some research on a card that he's thinking about getting graded. The card is kind of not as relevant as the grading part of the question, but it's adjacent. He did a study on a Jason Tatum red yellow optic rookie, and the data from Market Movers. So try to follow this and I can kind of repeat it if you need to, but raw and PSA 10, he says had nearly identical sales, basically $470. PSA 8 came in at $26. PSA 9, $58. Sorry, the PSA 10 sale, the number of sales were 470 sales, but the price was $140. Raw, here's the breakdown. Raw is $46. If you were to bulk submit this, let's say it's $20 extra to grade. So if you're grading this, you're basically spending $66. This is exactly what I look at on a daily basis. So I love this question. PSA 10 would come back. You'd be able to sell it for $140. PSA 9, you'd be able to sell it for $58. PSA 8, you'd be able to sell it for $26. His question is, he feels like this is a little bit of a gamble. Do we inflate the anticipated value of graded cards? Is it really worth the gamble of getting a 10. It seems like the odds are not in our favor. Sounds like he did a little bit of research on the pop count as well. And the number of sales on PSA 10 is just far more liquid versus PSA 8 only had 19 sales, right? So his point is like, it's harder. Not only are we not likely to get a PSA 10, but the price on a PSA 8 is so much lower and it's harder to sell. So I see what he's saying here. Generally, what I look at is if I feel like the card has a chance of getting at worst a 9 in this scenario, I would submit it because I'm willing to take the risk of losing $10 for the potential gain of gaining 100. Like, to me, that's a decent bet. But Kendall, what do you do? What do you do in these scenarios? What's your advice for Travis?
I don't really have the risk margin to be able to do plays like this right now. Like for instance, like to do that at that level, you'd have to submit at least 15 cards, which is 15 times 60. Yeah, that's like that's a decent amount of money that you're putting towards a play like this. And to lose $10 a pop at those, my PSA submissions haven't been as successful as yours this year. That's kind of why I've been a little quiet about most of them. But like for instance, this week we had some cards come back, and the best ones came back as mint 9s with auto 10s, and we had one auto come back, Bowman Chrome auto, straight out of the pack, out of 25, with a mint near mint 8 with an auto 9. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on here? So I've just been kind of just not really had a lot of success getting 10s. I've had like, I think 3 or 4 10s this year, and I've probably had maybe 15 to 17 9s. And then I've probably had like 4 or 5 8s. So that's kind of how it's broken down for me. So if you look at that and the general, like if you expand that 2-3x, then I'm losing $10 a card on most of those. And then, I've made double on a couple of them, which I guess probably like if you make that extra 100, then you can afford 10 9s, but then it's kind of a wash at that scenario. So I think if you're going to do this, you've got to do this on a very large scale. And I would, I would put like a couple thousand in a bankroll for this, and then make sure you focus on cards between, that 10 to 50 scenario, and just bulk submit those, and then see if you can get a roll going. But that also is going to require you to do quite a bit of eBay auctions. You're going to have to keep track of all that. You're going to have to send, like your shipping, your fulfillment is going to be 10x because you're dealing with that many cards. There is money to be made in this scenario. And I think Bob from Bob's Card Market, that's the kind of stuff that he was talking about last week, where most of the cards that move on their Discord is in that echelon. So you can make good money doing that kind of thing. I'm not saying you can't, but what I'm talking about, like if you're just a dude part-time in this on the side, and you're trying to add, a couple of 100 eBay sales into all of this, it could be something that could potentially be daunting for somebody who doesn't have quite a bit of time to put into something like that.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to go rapid fire through some of these in the chat, and then I got a couple more that we can get to before we wrap up the show. So thanks everybody for the great questions. So Chad Gill, great guy, love having him on the show, says, speaking of Jordan and GOAT, should we be buying LeBron cards now before he breaks the record in the next 2 weeks? I'm going to go out and say no. And here's why. Because I said buy LeBron cards like 6 to 8 months ago. For this, like, we're too late is my point. Like, we're too like if we're buying LeBron cards 2 weeks before he breaks this significant record, he's about to break Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time NBA scoring record, which has stood since the late 80s. And so it's a record that I don't think anyone ever thought anyone would break, especially after Jordan retired. So the fact that LeBron's going to break this record is extremely significant. It's too late. It's just too late, because now what you've done is you've shrunk your margin for error. If you would have bought LeBron back in when a good time to buy basketball cards, either last December or last, say August, this past August would have been the perfect time to buy LeBron during the football hype. So that's kind of when I was saying buy LeBron now. And Kendall and I talked about it on the show, and I talked a lot about it at nooffseason.com. Now, you could play devil's advocate with me and you could say, but Paul, couldn't I still buy LeBron because there could be a spike? Yes, but now you're going to have to be set up to sell those cards really fast. So now you're looking at the logistics of what Kendall just talked about in the other example. You're looking at all these logistics of like, you could buy LeBron. I'm not saying his cards won't increase in value from now, January 23rd, until whenever he breaks the record, which would be sometime in February. But what I'm saying is, are you going to get the card, put it in whatever condition you needed to put it into, and be able to list it and ship it before all of that happens? If you are, great. And if you're able to find a card that you think is at a lower price point than what you could sell it for, great. But what I'm saying is, it would have been better. It would have been safer. And for future lessons, athletes will be breaking records in other sports, maybe not to this magnitude, but there will be plays. And so learn from what I'm saying now. Like, don't wait until 2 weeks before the record gets broken. If you know a record's going to get broken in the next 2 years by the guy at a low point much earlier, and then hold him until he or she breaks that record. Kendall, this one's a good one for you. Brian Steeler 714 says Dalton Varsho has a first Bowman Chrome in 2017 and 2018 and a Bowman Auto in 2018 with no first logo. I think it's his first auto. What is the card to get? This is a great question.
Let me do some research on that real quick. I just want to make sure I get my years right.
Okay, while you're doing that research, Cody Ganzen, thanks for joining the show. New name, love it. What's the best Kimmy card to keep on to? I'm guessing, Cody, you're talking about F1, Kimi Räikkönen. There may be some TCG game called Kimmy that I don't know about. I don't love him from a card perspective, and I'm an F1 investor and not an F1 collector, and I feel like maybe he's more collectible than he is investable. But people check me on that one. Help Cody out with something on that, because I apologize, I'm not really able to get a good answer to you on that one on the fly. Kendall, what do you got on Dalton Varsho?
So there's a couple of guys that fall into this category where their firsts come out and then they just have Bowman Chrome firsts and products, but they're not big enough, or their agent hasn't made a deal with them in terms of signing autographs until a little bit later. So you'll see this oftentimes with like a mega box where a Mojo auto will actually be their first auto, and there's a couple of players that fit into this scenario. Dalton Varsho fits in this scenario. For instance, his first autograph came out in 2018 Bowman Chrome, but his first Bowman card came out in 2017 Bowman Chrome Draft, which means it came out probably 6 months before, even though because the draft always comes out at the end of the year. For instance, we just finished 2022 draft, and that has that 2022 draft class in it, but it's being broken and open in 2023. So, for instance, his 2017 Bowman Chrome Draft, the BDC 17, is a card that looks fabulous. It's definitely a way more visually appealing card than his 2018 Bowman Chrome Auto, but his Auto is the one that's selling in that Bowman Chrome 2018 set. So if you're looking for an autograph specific, this is an interesting case, because there are players like this. Then I would just say, and overall, if there's confusion, don't buy it. Like there's going to be other guys that are Dalton Varsho, esque, that are in that echelon of players. If we're talking about like skill level or like hype level and stuff, there's going to be other guys in this area that are not going to create as much confusion. So you could probably just pick another player. But if you are just hell bent on Dalton Varsho, I would still get an autograph, because the scalability is going to be pretty good. But the pop count on his 2017 Bowman Chrome Draft, the actual PSA 10, the the Bowman first. There are some secondary autos that he's signing on that. That's kind of a sneaky Paul Hickey play where the DNA certified after it is also obtainable with that card. Personally, I would buy, if I'm going to buy a card in this set, I would go ahead and just buy the first without an autograph on it. That's kind of that's a modern thing, really. Like if you look back at, like the junk wax era or before that, they weren't signing cards. Autographs, on card autographs is a modern thing. And so there's a lot of collectors out there that aren't really concerned with autographs. And so I know that is a heck of a take that we could talk somewhere else about, but
yeah, for sure. Greeny Green back on the show.
What up, Greeny?
And Ziggy No, thanks for chiming in, guys. Really quick, want to hit on something. So Brian Steeler 714. By the way, I love his icon there with the skull with the Steeler eyes. LeBron. That's
actually an image of Kenny Pickett dying over the next couple of years.
Oh boy,
in the AFC.
Starting lefty shots fired. Love it. Okay. Brian Steeler 714 adds, what if LeBron gets injured and it doesn't happen till next year? Okay. Caveat. Agree. There are caveats to this. That could be a scenario where there could be a buying window. He's projected to break the scoring record on February 9th, which is in like little over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks.
I need to clear my schedule for that because I definitely want to watch that.
Yeah, me too. And basically, like ESPN.com's tracking this, so it's even if he gets injured, like he should probably still do it this year, I guess is my point, unless it's like a season-ending injury. Okay, Chad Gill also chiming in on the Tatum grading question from Travis Martin a while back. So he's basically, Chad did a little bit of on the fly research here. I love it. So basically he's saying it's a 57% chance based on the gem rate that you get a PSA 10. So he thinks it's a worthy play. So I think you need to look at that also. And Kendall made a good point on like having the budget to submit the 15 to 20 cards that it would take to get the PSA grading level. That's true. And that's not what I'm necessarily saying. What I'm saying is like, what I'm doing is like, I'm just waiting until I have 20 cards to grade. So like the cards I held up earlier in the show and said, these are going to PSA. I'm actually like a few cards short of making a submission, but they're all different cards. So anyway, that's just a different way to do it. But I love the discussion here.
Meanwhile, I am still waiting on my July submission.
That's ridiculous. I hate that for you. That's ridiculous. We're going to have to start calling out PSA on the show. RPO Sports Cards, who we saw live earlier on the show. Thanks for joining the show. He tweeted, DM'd me on Twitter. So hopefully it's okay that I'm asking this on the show. Hey man, hope all is well. Had a quick question. Graded some of my Mahomes base rated rookies and a couple came back 8s. I'm thinking I might sell one or both this playoff run. Couple of things. When would be the best time to try and move them? Should I hold for a potential Super Bowl win, then sell them if the Chiefs don't make it? I have no problem holding these, but also don't want to miss out on prime selling time. I have extras, so I'm keeping a couple for myself, but I have no problem moving on from these two. Thanks, man. Okay, easy answer based on all. Thank you, RPO, for all of the great information and the great question on that. Easy answer. Sell the 8s now. List the 8s now for sale because they're 8s. And it's a great time for people who are watching the playoffs, excited about Patty Mahomes. It could be a win-win situation. People get some 8s that are in their budget during the time when they're hype about the Chiefs. You offload some of your 8s at a time when, yes, absolutely, they would be, I believe, at the height of what this card would be at a PSA 8. Could they go up if he wins the Super Bowl? Absolutely. But AFC, he might not win the Super Bowl. So this could be like, now I would think leading into the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, I think now is a great time to list the card because you're looking at a similar hype cycle to whatever it would be leading into the Super Bowl with Mahomes. A little bit more, 10% more in the Super Bowl, yes, but still, like, I would list it.
Crystallize it.
Crystallize the investment. Kendall, this is your question you submitted from somebody who texted you. Basically, long story short, what is the best way to track baseball prospect call-ups? I love this question because I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah. This was one of my favorite questions of the last couple of months from people. This was a guy that's here locally in Lexington. So again, thanks for reaching out continue. I will say it every single time. Continue to reach out to us. We love that kind of stuff. This is a harder question to answer because when I started to answer this question, I realized this is something that I do naturally. I am so it's super hard, I think, to articulate something that you just do naturally that you don't realize you're strategically doing. And this is just something I am far enough into the space that like it is almost it's almost impossible for me to not know when somebody's coming up.
Right.
Like because I have I'm friends with scouts, I'm friends with people that are calling games, I'm friends with people that are in the MLB, I'm not trying to like pump myself. I'm just saying like I'm so involved in prospecting and baseball media that like if Ellie potentially has a call up, it's not going to catch me by surprise. But like, for instance, that could catch me by surprise if somebody's coming up from the G League to the NBA and then I'm watching a game. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he was, like, for instance, the guy that was at Iowa last year who's been playing for Minnesota while Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns are down, Garza. I was watching a game the other day and I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know like that dude was a credible college player. Now he's in the NBA. That caught me by surprise. That would not catch me by surprise in baseball. So as I started to backstep, I started to realize you need to be on a social media feed that is specifically news oriented for these kind of things. I follow a lot of beat writers and prospect specific players or prospect specific accounts on Twitter so that I know where my prospects are moving. Plus I have a short list that I'm checking in on almost all the time. So if you go to the Sports Card Strategy website and the nooffseason.com and you go to our checklist and go to those 10 players, or let's just take the top 10, for instance.
The baseball card rankings?
Yeah, let's just take the top 10 for baseball. And then you go in and you find those guys. And then you go and follow beat writers that are covering those players. Or you just take time over the next couple of months and you go and you look at the news for each one of them. Just check in on them weekly. Make sure that they are, like the no news has come out, whether they're breaking a leg or something like that. And you just follow that. Usually call-ups don't happen out of nowhere. With big players, their call-up is expected. Usually there's some service time manipulation, and I don't even want to get into that today, but typically their call-up is big news for their team. For instance, like Wander Franco, everybody was like, oh my God, this guy can't get to the majors soon enough. You're seeing that with a guy like Matt Mervis, for instance. He doesn't actually have cards yet, which is a travesty. But when he does come out, we're going to heavily invest in that guy. But he's a Cubs player that is having some service time manipulation happen to him right now. And he hasn't been called up to the bigs, and he doesn't have a card, which is just horrible. Tops, listen to what I'm trying to say. Go find you a Matty Mervis card and get his autograph on something. Good Lord. But anyway, that guy is a guy that's going to come up, but it's going to be very obvious when they do, if you're looking at the right people. Honestly, Kevin Rosenthal is still just as good as anybody. So don't overcomplicate it. Just go follow those media outlets. There's not like a silver bullet that I can give you. You're just going to have to kind of know. What I do is, honestly, I play fantasy baseball, and the fantasy baseball news updates you anytime that you do that.
That's a good hack right there.
If you just play fantasy
just to track prospect.
Yeah, because the news is right there in the feed. Yeah. Like, it's so easy. But anyway.
Yeah, but that's a great question. Like, whoever asked that question, thank you for asking, because I wanted to discuss that a little bit on the show. So good answer. The answer is there's no easy answer. You just got to do the work, and we try to do the best we can at reporting on how the prospect call-ups and rankings relate to what you should do in cards. So thanks everybody so much for like helping us create the content for this episode. I think, Kendall, it's great that we've gotten to a point where we have so many audience questions that it can kind of dictate the entire show for us. I think we have a great audience, and I would encourage everybody to tell your sports card investing friends about the show, but also submit your questions. Submit them however is best for you to submit them. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, You can drop a comment below on the YouTube channel. You can email me directly at paul@nooffseason.com. We'll get your question answered on the show. Don't worry. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. Kendall, I'm stealing your thunder. We're going to cue the rock music. Everybody have a great day.